Yes, guys, welcome back to 11 Yanks Breakdown for another episode, a collab with Filippo Silva from Tactical Manager. Guys, if you haven't already, I've said this before, you know who he is by now, but if you haven't, go subscribe to Tactical Manager. I've put the link to his channel in the description. Filippo, awesome to have you on the channel again, bud.
Thank you for having me once again. I'm surprised you're still dealing with me here.
Dude, this is awesome. I love these broadcasts, and the fans love the broadcasts too. They love the collabs that we're doing. We're here today, guys, to talk about the Olympic qualifying roster, and there's a lot to talk about. So let's just dive right in, okay? Let's start off with a few things, guys. 31 players were called up. That has been cut down to 28 as of right now because of Atlanta, and that's a situation we're going to talk about as well. There are now 28 players. That is going to be cut down to 20 players a week from now on March 8th because they have to submit their final roster of 20 players to CONCACAF on March 8th. So that's going to be cut down. So these guys have 1 week to say to Jason Kreis, I deserve to be on the roster for Olympic qualifying. 8 of them will not be. So that'll be interesting. It is a largely heavily MLS roster, some good MLS players and some that are, interesting. So let's get into it. Let's start off with the goalkeepers. 4 goalkeepers were brought in. JT Marcinkowski of the San Jose Earthquakes. We have Jonathan Klinsmann from LA Galaxy, David Ochoa from RSL, and of course, you want to do the fourth one?
I refuse. No, Jonathan Klinsmann.
No, Matt Freese. Matt Freese.
Oh, wait, Matt Freese. Oh, you said Jonathan.
I said Jonathan Klinsmann. But in my opinion, yes, Jonathan Klinsmann is the 4th goalkeeper on this roster.
Yeah, you said 4th. That's the first thing that came into my mind.
Gotcha. Yeah, look, I think this roster will end up being those 3. And Jonathan Klinsmann, he plays at the LA Galaxy now. He's not going to start for them. He's not a very good goalkeeper. His name means a lot in soccer circles, but if his last name wasn't Klinsmann, he wouldn't.
Oh, and then we have JT's better than him for starters.
Oh, much better, yeah.
Matt Freese is better than him.
Yeah.
And Ochoa is probably better than – it's just that Ochoa, we haven't seen much of him. But he's probably the most talented goalkeeper we have under the age of 23 right now.
And definitely the best with his feet. Now, Ochoa is still eligible for the next Olympics. That's how young he is. I think he's 20 years old. So – or even younger, like 19.
19, I think.
He's 19 years old. So he's eligible for the next Olympics. He's probably going to start for RSL this season. He's going to be their number 1. They gave him the number 1. So that'll be very interesting to see. Like you said, I think Ochoa is the most talented. I'm not sure that he's going to start, though, just because JT Marcinkowski has more experience. So it'll be interesting to see. But it's up to the 2 of them to fight it out,
I do think Jason Kreis will go with JT for the qualifiers specifically right now. He has more caps, much more experience. And I guess we need to see if Ochoa will be healthy too. That's been an ongoing issue the last few camps right now. But yeah, I would definitely cut Jonathan Klinsmann. I don't know if we're going to get to that later.
I just got to cut you off here. My girlfriend's in the kitchen talking. I just have to tell her to go away. So I'll edit this part out.
Yeah.
Hey, babe. Babe, I'm recording. Can you talk in the room? Thanks.
I couldn't hear her.
No, yeah, I could hear her. And I might not even be able to hear it, but just in case, you know what I mean? The last thing you want is to record. Okay, let's take it from here. Go.
All right, so I do think that JT will start. That's my personal opinion there. More caps, more experience. And if anyone's wondering too, I'm looking down because I got the list here. So that's why I'm looking down the whole time. I'm not looking in the computer. But Ochoa is the most talented one. Personally, if I was the coach, I would actually put Ochoa. I want development.
Yeah,
I would go with Ochoa, but I think JT will start just for – he's just going to want to be safe, and that's the safest option right now.
Yeah. He's got more experience. He was, San Jose's number 1 last year. So, yeah. Okay, I think that's goalkeepers pretty much taken care of. Let's move into defense, and this is where it really gets interesting. A lot of defenders were called up. Let's start with the fullbacks, okay? There were 5 fullbacks called up. George Bello, Sam Vines, and Marco Farfan were the left backs. Aaron Herrera and Julian Araujo were the right backs. Now, that has been cut down to 4 fullbacks because George Bello will not be there, which is a good segue for us to talk about what happened with Atlanta. They were on the roster. In fact, Filippo and I recorded the same video yesterday.
You just forgot Sam Vines.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sam Vines, Marco Farfan, and George Bello, right. And then Aaron Herrera and Julian Araujo. So 5 fullbacks. Now, like I said, Filippo and I, we recorded this video yesterday before the news dropped. I think it was Doug Robertson who dropped the news that those 3 will not be on the roster, the 3 Atlanta players. So that will be Miles Robinson, George Bello, and Brooks Lennon. And I put something on Twitter that got Atlanta fans riled up. I attacked Atlanta for this decision. Now, here, I'm going to explain to you why this is a bad decision. But I'm going to say to Atlanta fans, my beef is not with you. I understand where you're coming from. You have CCL on April 6th. And like most fans, you believe you have a shot to win that. And to even have a chance to win it, you need to have your best players available. So I understand why you feel like that was the right decision. Okay. My beef is not with you. If I was in your shoes, I would probably have similar feelings about having my best players available. My issue is with Darren Eales and with Carlos Bocanegra, especially with Carlos Bocanegra, who represented the U.S. 110 times, has 110 caps, captained the U.S. at some point, and is now denying young Americans the opportunity to play in a very important tournament for their country. Now, like the fans, Carlos is thinking about his job at the club. He wants to have his best players available for CONCACAF Champions League. Here's the problem. I think that he's being narrow-minded and short-sighted with this decision, and I'm going to explain why. Number one, Atlanta fans, as much as you don't want to hear it, your chances of actually winning CCL are about 1%. Okay, they're very, very slim. You have a new coach, a bunch of new players. It's going to be very, very difficult. And it's, you're not as good as Liga MX teams. We've seen that before. No MLS team is. The only team that came close last year is LAFC. But even if you did have a chance to win CCL, okay, let's say you do win CCL. Great, fantastic. But here's the thing, guys. The success and the growth of Major League Soccer is directly tied to the success of the U.S. men's national team. That has always been true, and it will continue to be true, okay? The 2 times that Americans who don't like soccer pay attention to soccer is the World Cup and the Olympics, okay? The Olympics we haven't had for 2 cycles now. So we've lost 2 crucial opportunities to get new soccer fans. When you talk to people, how did you become a U.S. fan? What do they say? Either they say, I saw the U.S. at the Olympics, or I saw the U.S. at the World Cup. And then they get interested, and then they start watching MLS. So that's a huge opportunity missed if we don't qualify for the Olympics. So every MLS club should recognize qualifying for the Olympics is the most important thing we need to do this year, and go and show well at the Olympics if we want MLS to continue to be successful, right? So that's kind of where we're at with that. It's short-sighted, and there's not a lot of good defenders in this group, especially at center back. So not allowing Miles Robinson to be there is a huge problem, okay? Here's the second thing. Internacional released Johnny Cardoso. Talk to us about that. Why do you think they released him, even though they are in the middle of their season? They still have the State Cup going on, right?
Well, not only the State Cup, but the season doesn't have a break there. So we finished the Brasileirão this month of February. The state championship started, which is an important tournament in Brazil. And Libertadores starts right now too. Everything's going on. And they released Johnny Cardoso because they have the bigger vision of what this is important for his international experience, development, and to sell, because the Brazilian league does focus on selling players, as the MLS should as well at this point right now.
Yeah. If
we're going to grow one day to be a league that can actually hold players, we'll see. We're not there yet. We're nowhere near that, to be honest. And the other thing I had to say is these young guys, and you're talking about Carlos Bocanegra, when will these young guys have another opportunity, the ones you mentioned, with the senior squad? I don't know if they will. Maybe Bello. I don't even know if Bello will. Maybe later in the future. So maybe. when there's a U20, so usually youth tournaments don't have as much visibility as a senior tournament, but the Olympics does.
Yeah.
So it's their biggest chance, and it's just stripped away from them.
Yeah.
And like you said, as an Atlanta United, I'm not an Atlanta United fan. Obviously, the fans were always going to defend the club's interest, but it should be in the best club's interest right now for the USMNT and the U.S. soccer growth, rather than winning the CCL this season, which wouldn't do much to U.S. soccer. Winning the CCL this season, because it would be huge for Atlanta. It would be big for the MLS. I would actually want Atlanta to win. I would want any MLS team to win.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have a major impact on if the U.S. qualified the Olympics from a country standpoint.
Yeah. No one else, non-soccer fans are not paying attention if, an MLS team wins CCL. Mm-hmm. But if if the U.S. does well with the Olympics, a lot of non-soccer fans are going to be paying attention to that, So, yeah, it's narrow-minded. And here's the other thing. Like you said, if they want to sell Miles Robinson, if they want to sell George Bello down the line, especially, they need to showcase them at at international soccer. That's where they get interest. If they perform well at the Olympics, the transfer value goes up dramatically, right? Now, you can say, oh, she's just Olympic qualifying. Jason Kreis has already said he doesn't know if he's going to bring these guys to the Olympics because they weren't with the group that qualified, right? They weren't with the group that were there, that played together, that trained together. So this might be a huge opportunity lost from these guys. And here's the other thing that Carlos Bocanegra is not thinking about. If I'm a 16-year-old in the Atlanta Academy and I see this and I have ambitions to play for the national team, I'm telling my agent, let's find a club in Europe, okay? Because now you could say, well, the European clubs didn't release them either. First of all, some of them did, okay? Llanez did, Sebastian Soto did. But second of all, one of the advantages of being in MLS is that you're more available for non-FIFA call-ups, right?
Pete,
if you're in Europe,
in regards to the European teams too, you have to see what were the teams that didn't release the players, because Barcelona is not a development selling team. No. So for example, we could get to Conrad de la Fuente not being released, but Barcelona doesn't plan on selling him. So it's just that the thing is, what people don't understand is the CCL. Let's say they win the CCL. No German, nobody in Europe watches this. None of the big teams watch it. That's why all the Liga MX players stay there. There's not that much visibility. It's not because they're super talented. Liga MX can hold the players. They can't hold the players. If an European team comes with 30, 40, $50 million, they're going to take the player from Liga MX. They just don't think they're worth that much. So the thing is, the Olympics, let's say the U.S. plays the U23 Germany and some of the players do well. Bundesliga teams will be watching.
Yeah.
That's the thing. People don't understand
that's the truth. So it's, look, it's their right. Okay. It's Atlanta's right to say you can't release our players. It's not a FIFA date. No club is required to release their players. So I understand it's their right, but I still think the decision is narrow-minded and short-sighted. And that's all I'm going to say about Atlanta, because otherwise this will become an Atlanta show.
They better win the CCL.
Yeah, you'd better win CCL. And what if they go to Costa Rica in their opening game and lose and then get knocked out? Now you've deprived Miles Robinson and George Bello of this opportunity. But anyways, Atlanta fans, don't be mad at me. I understand your perspective. I really, really do. This is my beef is with your leadership.
They can be bad with me. They can be mad with me. I'm an Orlando City fan. So.
Yeah, exactly. Go get Filippo. All right. So let's talk about this defenders. Without George Bello there's 4 fullbacks. Now, like we said, this is going to be cut down to 20 players, and 3 of them are going to be goalkeepers, right? So the only 17 outfield players are going to be there. So are all 4 of these fullbacks going to be there? I don't know. Personally, I don't rate Marco Farfan, okay? Even though he's an LAFC guy and I watch LAFC play, I don't think Marco Farfan offers much. Sam Vines and Julian Araujo are the quality in these fullbacks. Those 2 guys are going to start. Aaron Herrera and Marco Farfan, guys, they're just very average, technically, tactically MLS guys who they don't have very high ceilings, unlike Araujo, personally, in my opinion, has a higher ceiling than any of these guys. Araujo, by the way, also eligible for the next Olympic cycle. So let's talk about center backs. Now, without Miles Robinson, this center back chart includes Justen Glad from Real Salt Lake, Henry Kessler from New England Revolution, Mauricio Pineda from Chicago Fire, Auston Trusty from the Colorado Rapids.
Okay. Oh boy, do we have problems right there.
None of those center backs are very good. Now, when we say not very good, we're talking about these guys' ceiling is Walker Zimmerman. Good, strong MLS center backs. That's their ceiling, by the way. That's not where they are now. All of these guys are inconsistent. Like Henry Kessler has had 1 season at New England. He was decent, but he's not, a guy that you look at and you understand, oh, this guy technically is very good. Defensively, he understands the game. They're just very average. A lot of these guys spent a long time in college, and I have concerns about our center back position, especially when we face Mexico in the Olympics, right, in the qualifiers.
The thing here is we keep making fun of how Mexico overhypes Diego Llanez, Macias, but if those players play against this defense we have, they might actually look pretty good.
Yeah, yes, they will. These guys are, Miles Robinson was the one center back that I was like, he's reliable. When you up the level, when you compress time and space. I'm not sure about these guys. So I think it will still be enough to qualify, but I just want to say I have concerns. Now, Abubakar Keita is another guy that I thought should have been released. He's left-footed, and none of these 4 guys are left-footed. To give them their credit, Mauricio Pineda is good with his feet, and he's versatile. He can play as a 6. He can maybe cover as a fullback. So, I think these guys will be fine against most of CONCACAF. I don't think it will make us lose games necessarily, but I do have some concerns about this center back roster.
The good thing is, and it's good to point out to everyone, is we could lose to Mexico twice and still make it to the Olympics. So it's not the end of the world. I know we don't want to lose to them, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, because Mexico is that third game in the group, by which time both the U.S. and Mexico might already have qualified. So we might have our subs, or even if we have some of our starters there. It's not going to be a game that it should be taken seriously, right? It's USA Mexico. It's always a rivalry. But then the semifinal game, as soon as you win that semifinal game, you've qualified for the Olympics. So the final is more just for bragging rights, okay? I think this roster is good enough to qualify for the Olympics. It should be. There's no reason why we shouldn't. Let's get into midfield. Frankie Amaya from FC Cincinnati, Cole Bassett from Colorado Rapids, Johnny Cardoso, who we mentioned earlier, Hasani Dotson, Andres Perea, Orlando guy, Tanner Tessman from Dallas, Eryk Williamson, and Jackson Yueill. So it's an interesting mix of their central midfielders. Who on this roster stands out to you? Obviously, Johnny Cardoso.
I like Johnny Cardoso and Cole Bassett. Those two stand out. But what stands out more are some guys missing, like Gianluca Busio and Caden Clark. That stands out a little more.
Let's talk about that. Jason Kreis seems to be valuing athleticism here over technique. And this seems to be a problem in American soccer, where our most technical players are sometimes ignored. I don't know if Alex Mendez was tried to be brought in, and Ajax said no. I thought he would have been a creative force on this roster. Mm-hmm. But okay, that's a European guy. Caden Clark, I know that the Red Bulls probably would have let him go if he was called up, but he wasn't. And guys, I think Caden Clark is one of the highest ceiling young Americans in MLS. So watch him this season and you'll see. I think he has a lot to offer. Gianluca Busio is not very athletic, okay, but he's a technical player. And he has a lot of experience. He's had 3 years now in MLS, So I thought he could have helped this roster that lacks creativity in the attack. There's a lot of defensive guys and there's a lot of dynamic athletic guys. There's not a lot of guys that I feel can unlock a defense. Most of the teams in CONCACAF are going to bunker against us, except for Mexico. And what you need is technical, creative guys who can play between the lines, who can receive the ball in the half turn, pick passes, keep possession. Technique, guys. It's missing from this midfield. Cole Bassett has it to a degree. Now, you've said to me, Filippo, that Cardoso could probably play higher up the field, even though people think of him as a 6.
Yeah, he could play pretty much as a box-to-box, too. He could. You could even move him a little forward. When he was in 2019, before he went to the senior squad at Internacional, he played a state tournament, a U20 state tournament at age 17. He was the top scorer, champion, and captain for the team. So he can get goal. He can go up top. He's dangerous. He's very technical, started playing futsal. So he could be the solution to that creativity, but then we're relying 100% on him on the midfield for that.
So he scored a goal the other day. I'm sorry. He got an assist yesterday. And it was a great assist. It was more of a box-to-box midfielder's assist, right? He receives the ball, drives towards the penalty box, and then slices open the defense with a diagonal pass out to the winger. And I thought to myself, because that was right after you talked to me about his possibility of playing higher up the field. And I was like, Filippo's right. This guy can offer something higher up the field. He's not just a defensive midfielder. Because,
Pete, what people don't see, too, they don't talk about it. They see Johnny Cardoso as a CDM, but what happened was he never played as a CDM until Abel Braga came to Internacional. Abel Braga is a very defensive-minded coach, so he put him almost as a holding midfielder, as a deep-lying playmaker, because he's all about defense. So I think he could play that role, and he could be our creative, technical midfielder, but that would be relying on one player. There's no bench. If he's not playing well that one game, who do we put? What do we do?
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping with this roster, maybe Cole Bassett and Johnny Cardoso as those dual 8s that they like to play, because we're going to play the same system as Berhalter's.
You don't think he'll start Jackson Yueill?
They might, but he's a 6. So, I think it's between Jackson Yueill and Andres Perea to start in that defensive midfield as the 6. And then if you have Cardoso and Bassett as the attacking midfield, I can see that working. But a lot of these guys, I just don't think they offer much. Eryk Williamson, not really. Hasani Dotson.
He'll probably be cut.
What?
Williamson will probably get cut. He probably won't make the roster.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Williamson and Dotson will be the cuts from this midfield. Tanner Tessman can be a good box-to-box guy. He's very big, very athletic, has decent technique, but we need to see more of him over time to see how he develops. So it's a wait and see game. I just want to say on record, I also have concerns about the central midfield. And if you have concerns about your central defense and your central midfield, that's the spine of your team. So, guys, a lot of these guys are 23, 24 years old, still playing in MLS, still decent to average MLS players. This is the level we're at. Although I will say, compared to last Olympic cycles, the last two, these guys have way more professional experience than those guys did. So, a lot of those guys were either in college or in academies or maybe had a few games with their first team. Okay. Now, at least we have guys who've had a year, 2, 3, 4 of them, Jackson Yule, as, professional players, even if it is in MLS.
But Pete, before you move on to the forwards, what we could see possibly, because if we do face Mexico, we can't deny that the Mexican team is better, the U23, with this team, not our main U23. U24, sorry, this is U24. We could see him play Perea in Jackson Yule for defensive purposes.
When we play Mexico? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and then you put Cardoso with a little bit more freedom to go.
Yeah, that's
possible.
possible.
You put those two holding guys there to try to hold back. And Yule is technical enough to do his own
the thing with Yule is when you give him time and space, he can pick a pass. Defensively, he's not as strong as Perea. Perea is a pure defensive midfielder, and that's where I think he would
not very technical too.
Not very technical. So, all right, let's move on to attackers, and here's where it gets interesting. Jesus Ferreira, Brooks Lennon will not be there, so it's cut down. Jonathan Lewis, everyone's favorite, the new Christian Pulisic, everyone, Jonathan Lewis. Kidding, not at all. Llanez, very good to see him there. Benji Michel from Orlando, Georgi Mihailovic, Ricardo Pepi, Bofo Saucedo, Sebastian Saucedo, and Sebastian Soto from Norwich. What are your thoughts on these attackers? So there's 8 of them if we cut out Lennon.
Well, I do like the fact that we see Llanez there. We see Soto. Ricardo Pepi, I don't think he'll be at the end of this roster, but I like the fact that we called him up. I like that we brought his name up, reminded him because of this whole Mexico, USA, who he's going to pick. He's a big center forward, very young. The Dallas Academy has produced great talent. He was called up for the Bayern camp that Justin Chase stayed at. So I like that. Jesus Ferreira. Sometimes I say it in Portuguese. Expected nothing special in his hat trick on the last camp. El Salvador. Who do we play again? Trinidad Tobago.
Yeah, it was Trinidad Tobago. Yeah,
Trinidad Tobago. But he did score a hat trick. I expected him to be here. I don't expect him to start. I'm expecting Soto to be our guy there. And the wingers, Jonathan Lewis. It seems like we don't have much depth there.
Not much depth and not much quality. The only real quality winger here is Llanez. Benji Michel is like Jonathan Lewis, right? They're decent in MLS, but they are not going
to play like a center forward, maybe.
Who, Benji Michel? I doubt Benji Michel is going to play as a center forward if we have Ferreira and Soto there. I think they're going to use him as a winger. But again, in the 4-3-3, we're talking about tucked in wingers. So wingers who pinch inside. Llanez is going to have his work cut out for him in creating for this team. Now, look, again, it's similar. Some of these guys are just Benji Michel, Jonathan Lewis, Georgi Mihailovic. Those 3 guys are decent MLS wingers. They're not special. They're not going to create something out of nothing. They're not technical enough to take players on 1v1 at a high level, So they might be fine against some small Costa Rica or Panama under 23, Dominican Republic, by the way. That's a terrible team. So we have to understand that if they do well against those teams, it doesn't mean they're good players, right? It means
tell everyone a little bit about Saucedo.
So Bofo Saucedo, I think he wants to be called Sebastian Saucedo now, from what I've heard. Bofo was his nickname for the longest time. Playing for Pumas in Liga MX now. He's 24 years old. He has not made progress. He's been the same guy for the last 4 years. He was at Real Salt Lake, and every year at the beginning of the season, he has one trick. He drifts down that left wing, cuts inside off of his fullback, and then curls the ball into the left-hand corner of the goal. Okay, so it's his one pony trick. Almost every goal he scores looks like that. And every year at the beginning of the season, he does it 2 or 3 times, and everybody gets very excited. He did it with RSL. He's done it here in Liga MX. And then people figure out that he's a one-trick pony, and they don't let him cut inside anymore. And then he just falls off towards, the middle of the season, and then you never see him again. And then again at the next season. So it's the same thing with him. He doesn't really have a ton of quality. but we don't have a ton of wingers. I would have loved to see Conrad on this list from Barcelona. He was not released, so he can go play in the Spanish third division. Don't get me started on that. It's too bad because I think Conrad would have been really good on the other wing. So Llanez will probably start. Let's go over the entire roster and try to break it down from its current 28 and bring it down to 20. So we have to cut 8 players. Starting with the goalkeepers, Filippo, I think we can both agree Jonathan Klinsmann is probably going to be cut and should be cut.
He's out. Yeah, it'll be Matt Freese, JT, and Ochoa.
Yeah. And then the interesting battle here will be who will start between Ochoa and JT. Let's go right into defense, and this is where it really gets interesting, okay? Because probably only going to be able to bring 7 defenders. If we include fullbacks and center backs, okay, I would want to cut Marco Farfan. Probably. I just don't think he offers much. Even though George Bello is not there, Aaron Herrera has played left back for RSL. So that might keep him here. If you have Sam Vines and Julian Araujo as your fullbacks, and then Aaron Herrera can back up either of them.
You want me to go? What I think here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're going to go with 3 fullbacks and 4 center backs. That's what I think he's going to call up. Araujo, Vines, and Aaron Herrera. And when it goes to center backs, pretty much all of them. We got to call up all 4. No more Robinson. So we have this sloppy center back here with Henry Kessler, Pineda, Auston Trusty. I think that's all I have to say. I don't want to talk about this center back. I don't know if you want to go into details with them, but we're going to go
just
3
say,
fullbacks.
I think Pineda will start because of his ability on the ball. And I think so he'll be one of them. And then maybe Auston Trust. It's a coin flip. A lot depends who performs well in camp. So that's really what it's going to be. We've set our piece on the center backs. Hopefully it doesn't come to a point where the center backs are losing us a game. But yeah, we've expressed our concerns. Let's move into midfield, okay? So we now have taken 7 players. We have 10 players left. I'm going to go with 5 central midfielders and then 5 forward/wingers, okay? So we have to cut these central midfielders down to 5. Are you with me on we do not need Hasani Dotson there?
We don't need him. He's versatile, but he's not good. I was going to say a very rough words. He's not good.
He's not good. All right. He lacks quality. He lacks actual. And again, guys, if you're a fan of Minnesota, you're a fan of a team where one of these guys, we're telling you they're not good. Listen, they will look good in MLS when they have time and space on the ball. They can do some decent things. When you up that level, you compress time and space, they're going to struggle. Yes.
Can I touch a point on that real quick before we continue to midfield? Sure. Guys, just look at it this way, okay? There's the championship, the English 2nd division, okay? It's not the best league. No, it's not a bad league by any means. It's better than the MLS, for example. You got players like Daryl DK, Jordan Morris, Pau Arriola, all there. Morris, before he got injured, he wasn't playing that much. So I know people are going to say, well, they weren't there for too long. It's been 4 games, 5 games. Yeah. But I'm sorry, if you get a player like Gabriel Jesus, for example, he got to Manchester City. First game, he was at the bench. First game, he was in. Second game, he was playing. Started the third one. If you have quality, they're going to put you in right away, even if you're not ready. Yeah. So when they got there, they saw that these guys are not that special. They're not bad players by any means. They're playing. But that's just a comparison with a league that's not that strong. It's not the Premier League. It's not Serie A, La Liga, Bundesliga.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, Pau Arriola is not going to play much at Swansea, okay? No. He's going to come back to DC. Pau Arriola is a good guy, right? He's probably going to be in the senior roster. Hang on one sec. Am I blocking you? Yeah. You can move it for me. I'll be another 10 minutes if you want to wait 10 minutes. All right, I'll just edit that out.
Yeah.
Look, Pau Arriola is not going to play much at Swansea. That's just the truth. He'll be back at DC, and he's a hardworking guy, and he looks good in MLS. People are like, he's probably one of DC's best attackers. Being good in MLS, when you have time and space, is one thing, guys. And that's why we say these guys are not very good. To be clear, they're going to look good against Costa Rica or against Dominican Republic. But we have concerns when you up the level. So let's continue with these midfielders here. Hasani Dotson's going to go for sure.
Williamson.
I think Williamson will go as well. Okay. Frankie Amaya. What do you think about him? See, he's a very technical player. He was asked at FC Cincinnati to do a lot of running and a lot of work, but he's actually better on the ball than he is off it. So I think he could be there. If we say Johnny Cardoso for sure is going to be there. Okay. Jackson Yule is going to be there. He's got experience, right? Perea is probably going to be there as well. So that's those 3. I think if you keep Cole Bassett and Frankie Amaya, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with keeping Frankie Amaya. I think he might not play at all.
Right. Oh, well, there's also Tanner Tessman. So it's between probably Frankie Amaya and Tanner Tessman. Who do you keep?
Yeah, but wouldn't you say Tanner Tessman is more similar to the players we mentioned a little bit? Amaya is a little bit different, brings something different to the table.
Yeah, he's more of a box-to-box guy, Tanner Tessman. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, Amaya's more technical, small, quick, little agile play, one of those small players. A little bit different.
Which can play better in tight spaces than a guy like Tanner Tessman. So
I'm going to go. Could Amaya play winger?
He can. It's not his ideal position, though. He's more of a central midfielder. But let's go with here's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go, and this is probably not what Jason Kreis is going to do, because Jason Kreis actually values athleticism. So I think Tanner Tessman, if we're talking about Jason Kreis, we're going to get Jackson Yueill, Tanner Tessman, Andres Perea, Johnny Cardoso, and then either Bassett, or he might even choose Williamson, because Williamson's athletic. So I personally think we should go keep Bassett, keep Amaya, keep Cardoso, and then have Yueill and Perea. But if I had to put on Jason Kreis, I think he's going to go with those four, at least. Perea, Yueill, Tessman.
We're going to play weaker teams. Besides Mexico, everyone is worse than the United States. It's much easier to beat a weaker team when you're technical rather than super athletic. But who knows what he's going to go with that?
Yeah, who knows? I think very likely he's going to go with those four for sure. Tessman, Perea, Yueill, Cardoso, and then one of Amaya or Bassett. We'll see. A lot depends how they perform in training this week. Let's move into midfielders, attackers now. I think as far as we're probably going to take 2 center forwards, okay, and then 3 sort of wide attackers. Now, the 2 center forwards, I don't think they're going to hang on to Ricardo Pepi. I think it's going to be Jesus Ferreira and Soto, which makes sense. Jesus Ferreira, more of a target man, false 9, comes deep, and then Soto, more of a poacher, a guy who's going to score goals. Now, that leaves us with 3 wide players. Llanez has to be there. Lock him in. He's a starter. Okay. Who are the other 2 wide players you think he's going to bring?
I think he's going to bring Lewis and Salcedo.
You think Lewis and Salcedo?
Sorry. That's who I would bring. But knowing him, he might actually bring Benji Michael for athleticism once again. He could go towards that. But
Georgie? I think he's going to bring Georgie. I think he's going to bring Georgie and Lewis.
Hold on. Really? But he plays as an attacking midfielder.
That's what I don't understand. Okay. Now, for the Fire last season, Georgie played a little bit on the wing, and he actually got 11 assists and 3 goals. He actually did okay on the wing, but he's not a pure winger. He's more of a winger who's going to cut inside. So I actually think he might fit the system a little bit more. I don't rate Georgie very highly. Okay. But Jason Kreis, if I'm guessing, Jason Kreis is going to go Georgie Mihailovic, Jonathan Lewis, and Llanez on those wide spots.
What if we took, well, not him, I don't know what he'll do, but maybe we would take out Frankie Amaya out and put Georgie there?
It's possible, but the way they've been written into the roster, right? Only 4 central midfielders, maybe. I mean, there's a lot we don't know. And I think a lot, too, is going to come down to training. How do they look this next week or so?
Right? Are they all together already? Because Cardoso only arrives March 10th, I believe.
I think Cardoso is coming from abroad, and I don't know about Soto. Llanez is already in California. It has been for the last couple of weeks. He's been on leave from his club. So I imagine Llanez is in camp. I don't know about Cardoso and Soto, but I do think that if we're looking at it honestly, that's probably how it's going to end up looking. I don't think he's going to use Mihailovic as a midfielder if he's listed as a forward on the roster. So that's just my guess. Look, outside of Llanez, I don't think any of these guys has real quality. Jonathan Lewis looked good against, Trinidad and Tobago. He's not even a starter in MLS. He's not even a lock-in starter for Colorado Rapids. So let's be honest, guys. He's going to probably look good against some small teams. Like you said, we're better than most of these guys. And I don't want this thing to be too negative. I'm not trying to bash these guys. What we're trying to do is get the job done, and I think they will be able to get the job done. If they do not, there should be some serious question marks about some of these players. And also, Jason Kreis should be out of a job. Like, there is no way. If we don't qualify this time with this roster, that's another huge, huge failure. To be honest, I think we will qualify. We have the quality to do it, and I think we will. And we have the experience. These guys are all pro players now and have been pro players for a while. So I think we will qualify. If we take this team to the actual Olympics, we're not going to get out of our group. So we need to try and get some better players in for the actual Olympics. Well, any other thoughts, Filippo, on this roster, on the qualifying tournament? Guys, Filippo and I are going to be providing you all the coverage for the Olympic tournament, on YouTube. Filippo is going to do match previews on his channel, which I will also hop on probably and do some match previews with him. Then he'll do the watch along for the game on his channel because I like to watch the game just by myself and look at tactics. And then I'll hop on my channel after the games and do a post-match for an hour, a hangout. And we'll talk about the games. And the same for the senior team roster, guys. So we're going to be with you from March 18th to March 30th at your beck and call.
Man, they're honestly gonna get tired of us this month.
They're going to hate us. By April, they're going to go, all right, guys, we've seen enough of you. No, it's going to be a fun time, guys. We're super psyched for this tournament. We haven't had a meaningful U.S. game at any level since, when was it? Nations League. That was the last time we had a meaningful. 2019. It was, October 2019 was the last time we had a meaningful game. And 18th, we opened against Costa Rica. Okay. Mm-hmm. That is the first meaningful game. It's going to be awesome, guys. I cannot wait. We're psyched for it. Maybe we came across as a little bit negative in this thing. We didn't mean to, guys. We're excited for these Olympics. We think it's going to be a hell of a fun time, and we're here for it.
And just to point out one thing before anyone says we're too negative, look, once the game starts, we want all these guys to be Lionel Messi, Pele, Neymar. We want them to destroy the Mexican team. We want them to win. It's just that before it happens and after, we want to try to hold them to a certain standard so we continue to improve. If we just say everything's fine all the time, what happens is 2017. That's what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, we want them to win. We want them to crush Mexico. And once the game starts, me and Pete are going to be believing the entire time we're going to beat Mexico. Yeah. So I'm going
to have my Jonathan Lewis banner flying high, man. I want him to score against Mexico. Hat trick. Why not, dude? And you know what? I could be wrong about some of these guys. You know what I mean? Like I've told my channel guys this before. I'm not right 100% of the time. There might be one or two guys here who prove me wrong. Good. I hope they do. I hope they come out and become better players and improve and show me that they can do more than they've shown me so far. So let's get psyched for it, guys. It's going to be a fun rest of this month. Filippo, thank you so much for coming on, man. Guys, if you haven't already, go subscribe to his channel. You do a lot of USMNT stuff. He also does some other stuff too, some Brazilian soccer, some European soccer. So some great player interviews, Brendan Aronson, Kik Pieri, a possible Justin Che interview coming out later, I believe. So really good stuff.
And tell them about yours too.
Oh, yeah. Caden Clark, this Sunday on my channel, I will be releasing an interview I did with him. I'm sad he's not on this roster because I think he has a high upside. Quick teaser, could Caden Clark be a dual national and eligible to represent another country? Find out on Sunday when I drop the video. Filippo, thanks again, man. We'll talk to you all soon.